This is just a little bit of a discussion and not in response, well, kind of in response, but I just kind of want to discuss a little bit of what Unrelated Philosophy was saying. Bionic Dance did a response to it. Both of those videos are going to be down there. I'm mostly going to be responding to what Unrelated Philosophy says. He calls himself a theist, which he is, by the way he talks. I myself am also a theist. However, on most of the things that he says, well, not on most, but on the main points that he says in that video, I do not agree with. There are two things I want to discuss that he discusses in that video. One of the later things he says was that if God does not exist, then how do we know what's true? How can we find truth? Because in this video, he's attacking a supposed false dichotomy between faith and truth. I do not believe that is a false dichotomy. I believe that it is a real dichotomy. Faith and truth are things that are separate. Faith and truth, as well as faith and knowledge. Faith is separate from truth. However, I think faith is also separate in different ways from knowledge as well. But first, he talks about this little false dichotomy between faith and truth, and then he goes on to discuss, later in the video, he talks about how if there is no God, how can we know anything that's true? How can we find truth at all, in any ways possible? And this is one thing I just don't really. I think that I guess I'm one who does believe that a God exists and has made this world. That's what I believe. And let's suppose that there is some kind of scientific evidence which proves a law, not a theory, but it's a law that there's evidence that proves that God does not exist, not evidence that proves that God may not exist, but that God does not exist. Let's say that there is a scientific proof, that there is empirical proof in everybody's eyes, not just hard scientific people's eyes, but there is hard empirical evidence for everyone on Earth. So there's some kind of we uncover some kind of scientific fact or whatever that proves that God does not exist and never did exist ever. Let's say that this were to happen. If this were to happen like now, I would be relatively shocked. But first of all, if this did happen to come about, I would be examining it and seeing if, first of all, if my previous faith in God could be possibly just nullified by this new scientific evidence. Because I think that if this were to happen, I would still have some kind of course of action towards finding truth. First of all, if this did, like I said, if this did come about, I would be examining it point by point. This, evidence as well as argument. Normally when there is evidence, there's an argument attached to it. I'd be examining every part of this and seeing if this new scientific evidence that God does not exist, does this new evidence nullify any kind of faith in God? And if let's say let's say it does. Let's say this new evidence nullifies any kind of faith in God, and that having a faith in God would be to reject truth and would be to be irrational and illogical. People say already that creationists are illogical, but I disagree with that, because there's no proof that God does not exist. There's no scientific evidence that nullifies any possible faith in God. So, let's say that this were to happen, that we do have this evidence, and this evidence, having myself examined it point by point, let's say that it does nullify any kind of faith in God for me as well as for anyone else. Would I then not be able to find any truth beyond that? Would my mind just go pfft, and then I would just not be able to find any kind of truth whatsoever beyond that? I think that there would be able to be some kind of truth. There would be truth in the world. Would it be very difficult for me to live with it? Would it be very difficult for me to find it? Yes. I would have lots of problems. My purpose of life would kind of, dissolve. And, all reasons for me, being here, all reasons for me living would kind of dissolve. Just like, because I have found reasons to live, and God not existing would kind of make my purpose dissolve. But would I be able to find truth? Would I be able to find truth in the world? Let's say truth that the Big Bang Theory is true, proven that the Big Bang Theory did happen. Let's say if that truth is out there, let's say that God does not exist, then there would be some kind of truth out there as to how this place came about, as to how the world exists. There would be truth out there. There would be. So I think that the idea that truth hinges on the fact, or that the being of truth hinges on the fact that there is a God, is not exactly a... For one, I think it's missing the point. For another thing, I think that that's not true. I don't think that God not existing, that wouldn't mean that there's no truth. There would still be some truth of some kind. Next, the supposed false dichotomy between faith and truth. Faith in God, the reason that we have faith, the reason that creationists have faith is because we cannot scientifically, empirically prove that he exists to others. We cannot prove to others that he physically exists. We cannot do that because we don't have the knowledge nor the ability. So we have to stoop down, not stoop down, but we have to use faith because we still believe in it. So we have faith that he exists. And the constant attempt that creationists and theists have is to prove that, either, I think that what a lot of them not rightly do is they try to prove that he exists without a reasonable doubt, that he indubitably exists. That's a little far, but what reasonable creationists want to do is, who are either philosophers or scientists, they want to prove that it's either likely or very well possible that God could exist. So there's truth out there. And faith, I think, is separate from truth. Faith is a separate notion, it's a separate concept, it's a separate idea from truth. Truth is what is. Truth is the way things are. However, the way things are is not entirely available to us. Whether or not a God exists is not scientifically, empirically available to us. We have certain experiences which will lead us to have certain faith in a God, which will make us have to have faith rather than, rather than have our whole life and trying to prove truth in our beliefs. So I don't see how it's possible that those two ideas could be together. I don't think that faith and truth are together. However, I believe that some things that people have faith in are truth. They are true. There are a lot of things that people have faith in that happen to be true, but having faith in something is not truth. There are lots of people who have faith in false things, and those things happen to be false. So I don't see, there's lots of different faiths out there. You know, there's faith in the craziest shit you couldn't even imagine. So how could the notion of faith be together with truth? Because that would mean that everything that I postulate in my mind could exist. So I guess I don't really understand where you're coming from. I mean, that's what this person is saying is kind of like it's a common misconception, I think, of creationists and theists. But that's just, I don't agree with those two things. That one, that God, that the idea of truth is dependent on there being a God. It's not, because if there was no God, there would still be some kind of truth to be found in the world. And the dichotomy between faith and truth is one that should be there. And I wouldn't really call it a dichotomy either. I would call them two separate concepts. They aren't opposites. Truth and falsity are opposites. However, I think truth and faith is just, a couple steps away from truth, because you cannot get to truth because of certain empirical scientific things that you do not have access to. So yeah, that's my thoughts. The video for unrelated philosophy is, as well as bionic dancer down there. Tell me what you think about this idea of what this person is saying. So, I personally don't. I agree with the things from the Bible he's saying, but I don't agree with his idea that of the philosophical things he's saying. I do not agree with. So yeah, let me know what you think about this person.